Hey darlings, welcome back to my channel. Thank you very much for being here. So previously on my channel I posted a video on how to achieve these designs on your bodies, ranging from the overlapping version to a simple beginner's version. So if you're interested in learning how to achieve this design on your bodies, please check the description box below for the tutorials. And if you are yet to subscribe to my channel, please kindly click the subscribe button below, turn on your notification bell so that you don't miss any of our interesting tutorials. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you guys how I made this simple but elegant bubu. It's very easy to make, very easy to achieve, and it doesn't take a lot of your time as well. So if you want to learn how to do it, make sure you watch to the end, and don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. Thank you. The first thing I did was to fold out the fabric I'm going to use, because I'm going to be cutting on fold, and this is the front part of the dress we're about to cut. And to determine the amount of fabric to fold, what I did was to divide the hip measurement into 4 and then add additional 10 inches to the measurement. I added that much because I wanted the down part of my dress to be wide. So if you want yours to be narrow, you can reduce the measurement to your desired amount, or if you're leaving your dress as a short dress, you can do as much as 3 inches addition to the 1/4 of your hip measurement. Okay, so now after folding out my fabric, I went ahead to start marking the indication lines as follows. Now the first indication line I marked was 1 inch above my fabric here, as you can see. And then from this point on, this is the shoulder line, and from this point on I measured down about 10 inches for the bust line. You can extend this to 11 to 12 inches depending on how wide you want the armpit of your dress to be, since we are using a Dolman style to mark this dress. So the next thing I did was to mark the waist measurement at 17 inches. Okay, then the next line I made was the hip line, and then the rest of the dress is the full length of my dress, which you can do at ankle level or at knee level depending on your taste. Now to mark in the measurements, you're going to start off with the shoulder measurement divided into 2, which I have 8 inches right here, and I'm measuring right from the center front of the dress. So from this point where the shoulder measurement stops, I'm going to put the sleeve length. Going to mark in your desired sleeve length. I want the whole sleeve length to be at 12 inches, but I'm first of all going to mark 10 inches. I'm going to use my lace to make up for the remaining 2 inches later on. So right now I'm marking in the width of the neckline, which I'm leaving at 4.5 inches. You can make yours wider or narrower depending on what you desire. And then the depth, I'm going to mark at 4 inches first. Then with these indication lines, I'm going to make a round neck design first. Next, I place my tape on the shoulder line. From there, I'm going to find 7 inches, and that's where the total length of the neckline depth is. And I drew a line to it. Then at this point, I took 1/4 inch, then connect it to the 7 inches. And then this is how my neckline is going to be like. Now from this point where the sleeve measurement stops, I'm going to mark the shoulder slope at 2 inches, but you can leave yours at 1 inch or 1.5 inch. So I'm going to measure down about 2 inches and mark. Next, you're going to connect this shoulder slope all the way to the neck point of your dress as follows, and then use a line to mark your slope. So this is what it looks like. Now the next thing you're going to do now is to start marking in from the bust measurement. So the next thing I did was to divide the bust measurement into 4, then add additional 1.5 inch to the measurement because I wanted it to be as free as possible. I wanted the dress to be free as possible. So if you think 1.5 will be too much for you, you can reduce it to 1 inch. Next, to mark in the round sleeve measurement, this point of sleeve is stopping at the elbow area, so I measured around the elbow area, divide it into 2, add 1 inch to it, and mark. So here I'm connecting the sleeve, and then this is what I have. Next, I'm moving it all the way to this point, but this is a temporary connection as I'm going to modify this once I'm done with marking in the side seam. Now to mark in the waist measurement, you divide your waist circumference into 4, add additional 1.5 inch to it, then mark. Using the same strategy, I'm going to divide the hip measurement into 4, add 1.5 inch extra to it, and then mark. I'm connecting the side seams together, starting from the waistline to the bust line, like this. And at this point, I'm going to smoothen out the curve under the armhole area. This is how it ought to be. It's supposed to come with a curve, not a sharp point. So at this point, after this area, the next thing I'm going to do now is to connect the hip line to the waistline, and then I'm going to be marking the full length of the dress. So guys, the next thing I'm going to mark is the full length measurement. And so far, this is what we have. And if you have been enjoying this tutorial, please don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up. And if you're yet to subscribe, please click the subscribe button, turn on your notification bell so that you don't miss any of our tutorials. Thank you. So guys, at this full length line, as you can see, I've marked out my hemline here. And then remember I told you I added 10 inches extra to the circumference of the hip measurement, and I'm going to mark it right here. And after marking it, the next thing I'm going to do is to connect it to the hip line like this. Make a straight line. You can curve the bottom part of your hemline. It all depends on you. Next, I added in my seam allowances. Ranging from the neckline up here, I extended the neckline to 1/2 inch like this. And then from the 1/2 inch right there, I extended it all the way to where the full length of the sleeve is like this, and I marked. And this will serve as a seam allowance at the shoulder line. And at the tip of the sleeve length, I also added 1/2 inch right there for additional 2 inches lace that I'm going to be adding right there. And then I added 1 inch for the side seam allowance all the way to the bottom. And when you're done with that, we're going to go over to cutting out the back side. So see what the front looks like after cutting. And I'm going to set this aside and fold out the fabric for cutting out the back side of the dress. Now to cut out the back side of the dress, I folded the same amount of fabric I folded for the front, and then placed the front piece on the fabric folded. Now I'm going to modify the neck depth measurement as it's not going to be the same with the front. So I'm going to be marking down 2.5 inch from the shoulder line, and I'm going to connect it like this. So this is the first and almost only modification you need to do on the back piece of your dress. Next thing I'm going to do now is to trace the rest of the dress on my fabric, and I'm going to cut it out and set it aside. Now to create the lace design in front of the dress, I'm going to be cutting on fold, and I folded in by 10 inches. And this runs from the shoulder line all the way to the full length of the dress. And the 10 inches was influenced with the fact that I wanted the lace design to be wide at the bottom part of the dress. Now I'm going to be placing the front piece onto the lace like this. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to determine where I want the lace to start and stop at the neckline area. Remember, this is a shoulder marking, so I'm going to measure in by 1 inch because I want the lace to stop around 7 inches at the neckline area. So I'm going to mark like this. I'll be notching this area later on. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to trace out the neckline and then cut out. Now after tracing out the neckline area, what I did next was to notch this area where I wanted the lace to start on the neckline area. And then when I flip my fabric aside, this is it, okay, and I further marked it like this. Now the next indication mark you want to make is the waist measurement, where the waistline is. And as you can see, I've marked it out already. You notch it from the side and then mark on the lace fabric. This is because I wanted to create something like an hourglass shape around that area. That is the reason why I'm indicating it. So here, from the center front, I measured out 4 inches right here, okay. Then I connected it all the way to the shoulder line. Then from this area, I'm going to connect all the way to the full length of the lace fabric. And as you can see, I left out about 1/2 inch right here while connecting. Then the next thing I did was to add seam allowance of 1/2 inch while cutting. So this is what the design looks like. And I'm going to set this aside and cut the one for the back side of the dress. Now to cut the design for the back piece, the full length of this is about 12 inches long. And then the next thing I'm going to do now is to place the front piece onto the back side. And why I place this onto the back piece is to make sure that both of them starts and ends on the same point at the shoulder area after sewing it. So now I'm just going to cut these excesses out. And when you're done, you should have something like this. And then I'm going to set the front piece aside. And I picked the back piece, placed it underneath the back side of the dress. And I'm going to use it to trace out the neckline area and also the shoulder area of the dress. Now this is what it looks like after cutting, and it all depends on you right now to create certain shapes to this. That is if you desire, but I'm going to go with a round edge. Now after cutting this, I set this aside to cut the remaining part of the sleeve, and I'm measuring out from this point all the way to this point to cut out the lace that will make up for the 2 inches remaining for the length of the sleeve. So I folded in 2.5 inch right here for the width of the sleeve. Now with the measurement you got on the sleeve, you're going to measure it in and mark. Note that you're going to need 4 pieces of this, and you're going to set this aside while we go ahead to the stitching proper. Now to put the pieces together, I'm going to start off with the front piece, and this is the wrong side of the fabric. So now I'm going to place this around the neckline area. I'm going to be matching it right side of the lace to the wrong side of the fabric like this. And the next thing I'm going to do is to stitch around the neckline area. Next thing I did was to notch especially this part of the neckline area. Then I notch around the round neck area as well. And this will enable you, when you turn over your facing over to the right side of your fabric, everything will remain relaxed around the neckline area. So this is what mine looks like. Now the next thing I'm going to do is to finish off the sides of the lace, and what I'm simply going to do is to fold in the 1/2 inch seam allowance I marked out here, and I used my pin to hold it down all the way to the full length before stitching. And you're going to do that to both sides of the lace fabric, and then after sewing it, this is what I have, and we're going to go over to the back side of the dress. Now, similar to what we did for the front side, we're going to be placing the lace right side to the wrong side of the fabric, then stitch around the neckline area, and then don't forget to notch these areas after stitching. Then you're going to turn it over to the right side of the fabric. Now, to finish off the edge, I'm going to fold in by 1/2 inch, pin it up, and then stitch all around the edges of my lace. Then after stitching, you should have something similar to this. And then the next thing I'm going to do is to finish off the sleeve area. Now, the sleeve parts that we cut out earlier on, what I'm going to do here is to place the right side of the lace onto the right side of my fabric, and I'm going to stitch by 1/2 inch around this area. And then after stitching, the next thing I'm going to do is to fold in 1/2 inch on the other edge of the sleeve remnant. After stitching this area, I folded in 1/2 inch from this point right here. The next thing I'm going to do now is to stitch it onto this area like this, and you're going to do it to all 4 sides of your dress. Now, when you're done, you should have something like this. And then the next thing to do now is to join both the front and back piece together, and you're going to do that right side to right side together. And next, you're going to stitch by 1/2 inch along the shoulder area. Then along the armpit area, you're going to sew with the seam allowance you mapped out all the way to the full length of your dress. And when you're done, your dress is ready. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to give it a big thumbs up. And if you're yet to subscribe, please kindly click the subscribe button below. Turn your notification bell on. And then don't forget to check out my other videos on this channel. You may find what you like. And I'll see you guys in my next tutorial. Take care of yourselves. Bye.